What's up, degenerates? This is Locked In. I'm your host, Mason Cameron at PFF_Mace on Twitter. And with me, as always, my partner in crime, Vishaal Gupta at Vishaal_Gupta95 on Twitter. V, how are you doing? We had a crazy start to the week so far. It's already getting off the chain, already incredible. Some crazy developments have happened. We're going to break into that real quickly. But V, how are you doing? Are you excited for another big week?
Yeah, I'm doing great. A very interesting start to the week, like you said, and it's just going to get crazier and crazier, I think. 3 games on Saturday, a bunch on Sunday. Should be a fun weekend.
There's a ton of stuff going on this week. So we're going to break right into it. First and foremost, we have to talk about what happened in Las Vegas. Chargers, Raiders. One of the craziest first half of football I think we've ever seen. The Raiders end up going up 42-0 before halftime, going over the total of 36. They obviously cover at -3. There was a lot of back and forth. It was just an incredibly confusing matchup to me of how this happened. I don't think that anybody expected it to be this bad, even though Justin Herbert was announced early in the week having suffered a season-ending injury. So this game ended up being Easton Stick versus Aiden O'Connell in primetime. Stick making his first career start. The Chargers just looked disjointed. They had 5 turnovers, 2 for defensive touchdowns. And of course, Brandon Staley and GM Tom Telesco were let go early this morning. And with that being said, I am going to bring in our special guest for the night. That is the Jason Draven, that FF nerd. You guys all know him. He is the lead fantasy analyst here at IN and the #1 Chargers aficionado. We had to bring him in.
That I think many of us know.
We had to bring him in so that he could give us his breakdown on the game, the firings, and of course the Chargers moving forward. So Jason, how are you doing? Are you I guess my first question for you, Jason, is are you at all surprised by the firings this morning?
Surprised? No, I'm more surprised by the fact that Tom Telesco was actually let go. That was the one that really surprised me. I didn't think Spanos would have the
you can say it
gumption to do that, to pull that off. But
the gumption.
Yeah, So I'm very impressed that he did that far, but I still don't trust him, man. And I'm still worried that they're going to get in the wrong group. I hope that they get at least a decent GM to start because, like I said, Telesco hadn't done a whole lot. And I think what I ideally would happen is that we get Adam Peterson. So I think that would be a big boost. Had a lot of talent that he was able to bring in, kind of help. Definitely has a culture of winning attached to his name, and that's also a big part of it. But it's definitely interesting to see how that would work out. But as for the rest of the season, I think they're more or less done. I doubt Herbert comes back. I would be surprised if Allen plays another game this year. Except for the fact that I think he might want to try and get a couple more yards, but it's going to be tough for him to really see either of them back. And you kind of saw it, granted, I do, with the release of the offensive running guru, quote unquote, but whatever. The 3-headed monster that was going on in the backfield was definitely one of the big worries that I think everybody had. Because they kept saying, hey, we need to really test out the different running backs. So I was impressed with what Spiller got. I mean, he continues to be one of the guys that I liked. I mean, preseason, 2 or 3 years ago, but it's not ideal. When you're looking at the cap space is a big one for us. We're over right now. I keep yelling to anybody who will listen that I don't want Mike Williams there anymore. That'll save some money. I also don't want Joey Bosa there. Granted, he's definitely a great defensive player, but he has ticky-tack injuries. He does ticky-tack fouls for no reason, and has an attitude that I can be very beneficial, but it gets in his way and often leads him to the sideline more often than he should. So that's generalized start for you guys.
I'm right there, and I completely understand it, Jason. And on the positive side, I was actually slightly a little more shocked also that they let Tom Telesco go. And obviously, there's a number of issues. I know that some people have been breaking down about obviously how poor he's drafted outside of like top 10 situations, and that's obviously carries a lot of weight. I was a little bit more shocked because I thought from a free agency standpoint, he had brought in some players. The resurgence of Khalil Mack has been, incredible with the trades that they've been able to make and some things like that. I feel like the question was never the roster always looks good. We seem to have this conversation all the time, Vishal and myself included, because every single year I'm eating crow because I will take the Chargers to be winning the West and something happens, whether it be injuries or players not playing out to their potential, because they do have quality veteran contracts at pretty much every level. And I was talking to somebody about this recently, and so I was a little bit surprised, but it does bring up a great point that this roster might not be in the best place in a lot of places, but there are places that they can cut weight and get significant value in their salary cap and make moves for the next GM in line. And it would definitely be nice, considering how long Telesco was there, that they get a fresh pair of eyes on this thing. And that might be enough to go over the edge, because at the end of the day, you're still looking at one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. And unfortunately, I think you're correct. I don't think we're going to be seeing him for the rest of this season, which would be unfortunate, but he has a lot to provide to whoever the next regime is going to be. And so that's just so interesting. But Jason, I also have to ask you, in real time, I know the feeling. This is a safe place. I watched the Dolphins do it to the Broncos. I completely understand. What were you thinking in real time watching the turnovers happen, especially early in the game here, against the Raiders, and just the, onslaught of offensive production from this Raiders team, the same Raiders team that managed 0 points just last week?
I mean, there is a reason that our Chargers defense has not been above 30 this year, and you kind of saw it there. I just expected them to not have that short of a field for a lot of the games, so I expect to be a lot slower. And just like I said, the turnovers really killed them to start. Getting down in that 21 hole really quickly doesn't help you. You let them score or have the ball within your own 30. That's usually not an ideal situation for most people. So, yeah, I mean, had the show on last night, and I wasn't really into it because I was just watching the game and watching it crumble so quickly. But I was actually kind of surprised we didn't see Max come in. They had just signed him back, and it's clearly a TCU product. So I would have liked to see how he would have done with QJ, and Darius. I mean, both of them are also TCU products, and so saying all three of them in the familiarity might have been a boost, but not a head coach. So I don't know what they were thinking or what they wanted to see. But not ideal. It, once you allow them to put 42 on you and you're not able to move the ball, even with, well, again, don't know why they started that way, but they kept switching out running backs immediately. And that the only star you really had was Eckler, who was healthy. And we kind of saw Palmer come along. I was impressed with some of Everett's play, but again, for health reasons, I always struggled to really start him in a lot of situations, and I'd never trust him because I always like Palmer more. But again, it's very different players and just health for both of them. So another area that we could probably cut some weight is not having three tight ends that are just randomly, sporadically played. I'd much rather knock that down to two, but Stone Spart's relatively inexpensive as well. No, I mean, again, we mentioned on last night's show, I was really surprised at Zamir White because, again, the short yardage really allowed him to score quickly and set him up for a lot of success last night. But that's one area that I think that's why you saw the interim head coach is the linebackers coach. That's one area that the Chargers actually has seen a boost in is their ability to stop the run. And so I'm not quite surprised on that one. I'm more surprised that the person they brought in for the interim GM terrifies me. Since he was the talent scout who decided I should take Quentin Johnston over Addison or Flowers, which really broke my heart. But we'll see if Quentin can't turn it around. But man, that's another frustrating part of it. And just watching them try and fight for, the first 10 minutes, I was like, this is brutal. And then it just was, over. And so they did what they could. And Eckler thankfully got a couple of big catches for anybody who started him, but it wasn't enough to really make him viable for you. You got 6, maybe 7.5 fantasy points if you're lucky, and that's a rough day.
Yeah, that's a tough look for sure. Absolutely. And that brings up a really good question. So you did already give us who you would like to see at GM in the future there in LA. Who would maybe be a target at head coach, would you think? I know that it would obviously go hand in hand with the GM hire. He's obviously going to be picking his guy. But if you had your say in it, if they said, hey, Jason, we've been seeing what you're doing, bud, and we want you to be the next GM of the Chargers, who are you hiring as the next head coach of this team to hopefully maximize the potential you've gotten out of Justin Herbert and make these decisions that they have to make regarding the personnel that they're going to be playing moving forward? Because like you said, there has been a lot of questions. There are a lot of things that are going to need to be decided as they head into next season.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I'm not quite 100% sure who I believe would be the best fit. Names I keep bringing up because I think they deserve it, but I think Frank Wright in this position is a good one. Bill Belichick is another one that keeps floated out. The one I really think deserves it the most is actually Eric Bieniemy. But we also have Kellen Moore there, who I guess isn't really tied to us via a big contract, but I would expect with Bieniemy that you'd not want two offensive-minded coaches there. But I love what Bieniemy has really done with the Commanders, and I think that's a real reason they're having so much success with actually moving the ball, is because of his offensive scheme that he's brought in, and it really is just a good fit for him. And having somebody like that has been with a lot of, I would say, Hall of Fame quarterbacks and Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. And then, I'm not going to say Sam Howell is by any means a Hall of Famer, but he has really put up some awesome tape. If he can not fumble it and stop turning it over and stop getting sacked the most in the league, that might help a little bit. So those are some names that I'd be really interested in kind of seeing. I wasn't my choice. I've probably not in the best way of bringing it up, but I really wanted Brian when we were looking at bringing in Staley. That was somebody I really wanted, but he's clearly a Giants head coach and he doesn't want to. We'll see how much that, if they keep him around, because he's struggling there. But his, again, offensive scheme is definitely a big part of it. And now they can't stay healthy, which, again, another issue the Chargers have. So wouldn't want to move that much, except for the weather's a little better in LA.
That is definitely a draw too. And V, I want to get your take on this too. What a crazy outing. I know that we've been kind of back and forth in some situations. We've definitely identified some value in these Chargers in especially early in the season, but it was a little bit of a quick, steady decline. What did you make of this last game and kind of what you've seen of the firing and everything going into that?
Yeah, just a crazy situation with this team. Just a pretty unbelievable collapse of this franchise over the last few months. Because again, you said it. You look at this team on paper, and it's just there's talent everywhere. Whether you're looking at offense or defense, there's just talent everywhere. And I think that Green Bay game a few weeks ago really, encapsulated what this franchise is. You have this all-world quarterback dropping dime after dime after dime all over the field, and your highly paid, highly drafted playmakers are just letting him down. And then you have this defense that you've invested so much in, allowing Jordan Love to just torch you up and down the field. And then you let it happen again last night. Derwin James, first rounder, Asante Samuel Jr., second rounder, Kenneth Murray, first rounder. You paid a small fortune to J.C. Jackson, and that lasted less than a year. So much investment has been made on both sides of the ball, and you just are not seeing anything close to what you paid for. So, real shame, really disappointing. This is a team that has so much potential and it'll be so much fun to watch making a deep playoff run because you have that quarterback, you have a receiver in Keenan Allen. That would be incredible to watch. But yeah, very disappointing. Started the Chargers defense last night in fantasy. That was horrible, horrible mistake. -5. I don't know what you were doing. Tough scenes to watch, especially, I took the over last week on the Vikings Raiders, missed that by 37.5 points. I was like, if you're going to miss, you might as well miss big. But then to come back and see them putting up 63, it's like, where was this last week? But what can you do? Just
what a swing indeed. Yeah, it was an incredible swing to go from 0. And you know what? Another thing that we were talking about even the week prior is that this Chargers team played, New England 6-0. So it's one of those things that it's a weird turn of events, and the NFL is a weird place like that sometimes, and it just happens. So, but we have an incredible week ahead also. You can definitely head into our Discord though to bug Jason more about his Chargers. To do that, go to importantnonsense.com, become a member. That's how you can hit us all up for any of our picks. Jason breaks it down every single week with some of his targets. And Jason, so that brings us to the week. I'm super interested. You've been putting a lot of great picks into the Discord also, and thank you for that. By the way, you've been winning me some money as well. Love the Jason picks. Jason, I don't know if you have anything broken down for the week or if you're super familiar with any of the lines that have come out so far, but I'd love to get your take on maybe some of the guys that you're targeting individually as somebody that might be of high value this week or anybody that you might be fading this week.
Yeah, I think one isn't going to be super surprising, but I am looking at T. Higgins this week. I think is somebody I'm really interested in targeting. They have his receiving yards right now at 40.5 for the over under, and I think the over is pretty easy there for me. And I also have him going for a touchdown this week, so I'm really high on him for that reason. Another one that I'm enjoying as well is the let's see. Well, clearly Pittman's always one of my favorites to go to because talk about somebody who can always score a touchdown. That's another good parlay pick to kind of throw in with him because that's one of my favorite things. I just if I can stack on touchdowns and get that multiplier with the parlay, that I'll do that all day. But it's really just dependent on what the line looks like. So when we look at that one, it's let me see. What I have for an any time is plus 185, and if it's a first, it's 900. So both are good options for me. I like the 185 a lot more. I think that's pretty easy to stack on with any other option on that same point. Colts DST plus 425 for a touchdown. Could see that easily happening. But it's it's Mitch Trubisky. So that's part of the reason I'm kind of picking on him. I have to do it. We have a lot of Bears fans in the Discord. And so knowing Mitch and all of his issues, this could easily be a chance that you get that. You stack those two and get like plus 900 off of it really easily. So those are two picks that I'm definitely going to be looking at and probably playing with more as I get any more information, same as people are slowly dropping like flies for this weekend. It's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, Jason. Thank you for the insight and coming on and talking to us about some Chargers and your picks for the week. And we actually have both of those games early on the slate here that we're going to be breaking down. And we agree with you too. We're going to be bullying Mitch a little bit here. And I am also looking at some value in Cincinnati, shockingly enough. So Jason, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on and talking to us. And until next time we see you, have a good one, my man.
All right, man. Thanks so much for having me. Have a good night, guys.
Take care. Always fun to talk to Jason. It's amazing. Everybody go follow Jason, that FF nerd, on Twitter and everywhere else, and come into our Discord, chat him up there. He is always a hoot to talk to and always has something good to say. So we love to see it, and we appreciate him coming on. V, a crazy game that was last night. Obviously, we're breaking into our slate of the week already this week, and Jason actually teased our opening games pretty well. I'm not going to lie. So we actually have a pick from each of the Saturday games on the slate this week. So that's actually nice. So it can make a nice little, Saturday parlay for some of you guys if you're looking at it. But we obviously love all of these picks individually as well. And the first game on the slate for us is Minnesota heading into Cincinnati. Jason was saying that he likes Higgins in this game, and I can agree with him. I have because I faded these Bengals live on this show 2 weeks in a row, and Jake Browning told me to hold this, and he made me eat crow. So here I am. I'm a believer now. They've been playing well, especially well. And Jake Browning has been impressive in his starts. He has an 85 plus PFF passing grade over the last 2, 0 turnover worthy plays. He's not really pushing the ball significantly downfield, but he is managing the game well. He's throwing it short. He's letting his playmakers make the plays. And that's another reason why, like Jason targeting T. Higgins, especially at a much lower number like that, isn't a bad thing because they can get that volume. They're going to be used significantly after the catch, and I like it right there. I think that that's a significant value for them. And another big reason why I really like this game is the Cincinnati defense has been rushing the passer well. They have 7 sacks in their last 2 games. And if we go back to what Minnesota has been able to do, they barely hung on to a 3-0 game versus Las Vegas. We talked about that. What a weird situation for that to happen, especially since we kind of both expected points. They played in a dome, and I don't know what else to make of that, frankly. But Las Vegas rushed the passer really, really well in that game. They had 24 total pressures. They had 5 sacks, and Minnesota was rendered more or less useless. And this week, Nick Mullins, projected starter. I know Justin Jefferson is due to be back, but we have to question to what extent he's going to be effective in this game after coming back and having a seemingly serious chest injury. I'm not quite sure exactly what happened. I know that
a pretty big hit over the middle on a errant pass by Josh Dobbs, so not surprising to see him banged up.
And I know that people were talking about how serious it is towards the ribs and if he should be able to play and if he's just playing through pain or whatnot. I find it hard to believe he will be very, very effective, which really puts this Vikings offense behind the 8 ball, especially when you're talking about going with a new starter, not having one of your best weapons or having him very limited. That could be an issue. Obviously, Jordan Addison has been fantastic in what he's been able to do with this offense, but it's asking so much for them to continue to change passers and succeed offensively. I don't see this being the case either. Under 76.5 receiving yards for Justin Jefferson. That is such a high number. I know JJ is super talented. We've taken over this number for him plenty of times in the past and been well over. But right now, I think that this is just too high of a projection for him, considering what he's going to have to be going through. Under 76.5 receiving yards for me there. And I'm also liking Cincinnati to cover at -3 here. The total for this game is also very, very, potential right there. 40.5 points. It is very low. Given how well Cincinnati has played offensively, I could potentially see an over happening here. You just have to question what's going to happen with Minnesota right now, where it's really hard to trust them. So I'm staying away from the total, but if anybody was interested, the over does carry some value there. And I don't know what to make of it. I've had to eat crow on this Bengals team, V. What have you made of their performance over the last few weeks? And what do you make of this one coming up?
Yeah, they've definitely been very impressive, and it obviously all starts with Jake Browning. He has done a tremendous job quarterbacking this team, making the plays that are there, and they're not all just like short passes that go for long yards. I mean, that Jamar Chase throw on Monday night that went for a touchdown was a fantastic throw. He had a couple nice plays in overtime in that game where, he kind of scanned the field, hit his second or third reads, and made very, accurate throws on the field. So very impressive to see what he has done. I think for me, the key matchup in this game is Minnesota's defense versus Cincinnati's offense, because over their last 2 games, Minnesota has not allowed a single touchdown, whether that's an offensive touchdown, defensive touchdown, whatever. They gave up 12 points to the Bears, all field goals, 0 points last week to the Raiders. So that's why I am actually interested in taking the under in this game of 40.5, just because I think Minnesota's defense has been that good. They have the scheme from Brian Flores where they can just really confuse guys, especially when you have a young quarterback like Jake Browning. And then on the flip side, I mean, I don't know what we're going to talk about with this quarterback situation with Minnesota, going from Kirk Cousins to Jaron Hall to Josh Dobbs now to Nick Mullins. It's just a roller coaster ride over there. You don't know what you're going to get. If Justin Jefferson is not going to be 100%, Alexander Madison, I think, has already been ruled out in this game. So just not a lot of playmakers still left for them. And now you have Nick Mullins starting. I think it could be a long day for Minnesota's offense. So if Minnesota's not going to be able to really do anything with the ball on their side, I think it's going to be kind of hard to hit the over on this game, given how good Minnesota's defense is. So I think that's probably one of the plays I'm targeting in this game.
Yeah, absolutely understandable there. You bring up a good point, and the Vikings defense actually has been surprising. It's something that we've talked about a lot this year, about how they really blitz a lot. They rush the passer. They have to get home. That's going to be an interesting matchup, absolutely, with this Bengals offensive line. We're going to see what has to give. I'm actually really interested in watching this game in the Saturday slate, and we have 3 games. This is the first of which I can't wait to break down. We have some good ones, the night one specifically, because we just keep on getting into these Broncos, but we'll break that down here in a minute. The next game we have on the list here, Pittsburgh heading into Indy, another one that Jason was also interested in, and we were talking about. This is another game right here where the Colts are -1, which is, I guess, in my initial reaction, a little bit favored towards Pittsburgh too much, considering that I right now don't trust Pittsburgh worth a lot. And for them to only be +1.5 as opposed to maybe a clean 3 is a little bit surprising for me. Total for this game, 42 total points. 42.5 total points. You are targeting the game total here. Which side are you leaning on this one, and what makes you think that way?
Yeah, I'm all over the under 42.5 in this one. I think this is a crazy high line given who this Pittsburgh Steelers team is. And I think if you're going to set the line as low as it is at -1, the only way Pittsburgh covers that or wins this game outright is if it's a very low scoring defensive game. This is not a Pittsburgh team that has any sort of capability of playing in shootouts or winning shootouts, given their quarterback situation this season, and especially with Mitch under center. But we'll start with on the defensive side for Pittsburgh. T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, both cleared in the concussion protocol, so they should be playing in this game. Obviously, huge boost for that defense. Those guys are absolute monsters on the defensive line. They should be able to give Gardner Minshew a very tough day tomorrow and hassle him all day. So I think Pittsburgh's defense should have a solid day against Indy with all their guys healthy. But the main reason you're taking this under is because of Pittsburgh's offense. A Pittsburgh Steelers game has not gone over 40 points since week 10. They have only gone over 40 points 4 times this year. In Mitch Trubisky's last 3 starts, the game total has gone under 40 or gone 40 points or lower. In 4 of his 6 starts with Pittsburgh, the game total has gone under 40 points. This line is set at 42.5. So you're getting an additional 2.5 points on here. I think there's tremendous value here. There's just no shot for me where I think this game can really go over unless some craziness happens with defensive and special team scores. This Pittsburgh defense gave up 3 first-half touchdowns last week, and the game total still went under 40 points because Pittsburgh's offense is that terrible. I don't see anything changing this week. Again, sorry, Mitch, you're just not a good quarterback. We thank you for what you did the last 2 weeks, beating the Cardinals, beating the Patriots, giving the Bears the first pick. But you're just not a good quarterback. You don't deserve to get 42.5 points on a total. So definitely love the under in this one.
And just to put that into perspective, also, like you said, they have not gone over 40 in quite a number of games. This is tied actually for the third highest total of their season, and they have only gone over 1, 2, 3 times this season. So they've
Yeah.
gone over 3 times. This is the third highest total they've had. So they have gone under significantly lower totals this season. And I completely agree. They were a better team when they had better quarterback play out of Kenny Pickett. And right now, Mitchell Trubisky looks fairly disjointed. He doesn't look like he has a great grasp of the offense. He is turning over the ball at a pretty high clip. It's something we talked about after the Thursday night game against New England last week. And I don't know that this one's going to be a whole lot better. I actually had to double take because for a second, I thought they played on Monday. And I went back. I was like, wait, they're making them play on Saturday after playing on Monday. But that was just me misreading the calendar. But that just goes to show how forgetful this Steelers offense actually is. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
an unfortunate demise for them this late into the season. But now we get to go to a really, really interesting game here. Another game on the slate. Denver heads into Detroit. Detroit, 4.5-point favorites, 48 for the game total. An incredibly high number. If anybody watches this show, consistently knows that is an incredibly high number for a Denver total right now. V, I know where you're headed with this one, and I completely agree. So I will let you take it away from here. What are you targeting in this game specifically, V?
Yeah, more deja vu for us. Feels like a kind of a broken record over here, but here we go again. We have picked the Broncos and the under in 4 of their last 5 games. In those games, Denver is 3-1 against the spread and 3-1 to the under. So this has been a very profitable bet, and I'm going to do it again. Denver plus 4.5 and the under in the game total of 48. This Denver defense continues to dominate. They did it again last week. They allowed just 7 points against the Chargers while generating 6 sacks and 2 takeaways. And I know Herbert got hurt early, and Easton Stick played the majority of the game in the second half there. But even when Herbert was in the game, this Chargers offense couldn't do anything. Herbert was sacked 4 times and had an interception. So this defense just continues to swarm opposing offenses and just gives them a big headache. Now they're playing Jared Goff, who has struggled mightily recently. In his last 4 games, he has thrown 5 interceptions. He has fumbled the ball 4 times and has been sacked 10 times. In those 4 games, he has thrown for less than 250 passing yards 3 times. This is just a Detroit offense that is not clicking right now. Goff is not playing well. And now he has to go against a fantastic Denver defense. I feel like it's going to be a big trouble for this Detroit team. Getting so many points, 4 just feels like way too many in this instance. And on the flip side, this Denver offense, while not great, has been definitely much better than earlier in the season. Has been much more consistent, better at taking care of the ball. Now they get to play a Detroit defense that has allowed 26 or more points in 5 straight games and 6 of their last 7. So I think there should be plenty of room and opportunities for this Denver offense. Even though this Detroit defense has been pretty bad, this game total of 48 is just insane. A Denver game has not gone over 48 points since week 5, and that's when Denver's defense was looking like they were going to be historically bad. They gave up 31 to the Jets, 28 to the Bears, 70 to the Dolphins, and 35 to the Commanders. Since then, this Denver game has not gone over 48 points. I think the closest was 46 when they played the Bills on Monday night. So I have no idea where we're getting 48 points from, but I'll happily take the under and cash that ticket all day long. So Denver plus 4, under 48 points.
And especially when we talk about the Lions having not covered, they're just 1-3 against the spread over their last 4.
And almost blew that one when they were up 21-0 and almost just completely torched that one.
Yeah, so it hasn't really looked terribly great for them, and a lot of the reason has been Jared Goff has been a little more turnover prone, which is really weird considering that he went a significant amount of time without throwing a turnover or even a turnover worthy play. So right now he is struggling. And I was looking it up here. It looks like his total for passing yardage in this one is 254.5
You read
yards.
my
I think
mind.
that
Get
that
ready to
seems,
see a prop pick on that when we post our picks this weekend for me.
yeah, I think that that seems like a shoe in for value there.
Yep.
I completely agree with you. And another thing to be said is that this Denver defense is absolutely phenomenal turning the ball over since week 6. 20.2% of opposing drives have ended in a turnover. That is the most in the NFL. They have the
That's
most
pretty good.
turnovers. They have the most turnovers forced since week 6. It really doesn't make a lot of sense that this game would go over at 48. I'm right there with you. And 4.5 is far, far too many points. This game should have been a clean 3 points, in my opinion, if I was setting these lines. I know that there's some odds makers out there laughing at me, but that is another questionable call for me, considering how well, like you said, the Broncos have played against the spread and really locked people down. The offense is playing fairly efficiently. They get exactly what they need and nothing more. And it's working out for them. They're playing really well outside of the Houston game where they ran into some hiccups. But, you know, Houston is a quality opponent right now. And I think that when we talk about the difference between Detroit and Houston, I don't think it's as far as a lot of people would expect. I'm right there with you, though. I like Denver a lot in this one as well.
Yep.
Another interesting one. Oh, no. There we go. The site crashed for a second because it knew that this was way too much money for this one. Also here, the first game that we are targeting on the Sunday slate, and it's actually the only game we're looking at in the early slate, given how many games there are and they're spreading them out. I'm sure we're going to have more by Sunday. So make sure you get into the Discord and check it out. We get more and more picks in there. So not just these ones, but these are some of the ones that we're breaking down for the week. I'm really loving this game, V. Chicago heads into Cleveland to take on the Browns. The Browns 3-point favorites, and I'm taking Chicago +3 in this one. It just makes sense here. Since Fields' return, they have been substantially more efficient as an offense. And not only that, their defense is playing outrageously well as well. It's something we have talked about in the past. They are 3-0 against the spread since Fields' return over the last 3, all as underdogs, a pair of them on the road, and 2 of them versus the aforementioned Detroit Lions. So let that sink in just a little bit. The defense has been a huge part of their success. Like I said, they've only allowed 18 points per game to opposing offenses over the last 3. That's top 8 in the NFL over that span. 9 interceptions since week 11. That's the most in the NFL. That is an impressive feat for a defense that was looking also very, very porous and very generous in the secondary. And now they are getting a ton of takeaways and they are absolutely producing well. If we look at Cleveland, I understand that they've been much improved offensively with Joe Flacco under center. They actually played very well and won a game. I think a lot of us expected them to lose last week, but defensively, they just haven't been the same team, the same historically elite team that we saw through the first half of the season. Over their last 3, they've allowed 30.7 points per game to opposing offenses. That's 4th most in the NFL. And a big reason for that is Denzel Ward, their top corner, an elite man coverage corner, is again questionable. Since he has been out, this team has struggled with what was their identity early in the season, which was what we talked about early on. They played a ton of man coverage. They played a ton of cover 1, and they really let their athletes in the secondary shine and let Myles Garrett get after the quarterback. That wreaked havoc. They are not able to do that right now because they cannot play man coverage with a lot of these offenses. I know that DJ Moore is also questionable for this one. We're not sure if he's going to be able to play. That is obviously
like he'll be out there.
Okay, that's a good one. That's obviously another positive for getting a +3 here. Now how effective he's going to be. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. He did end up coming back, I think, at one point in the
No, he
game.
came back. He scored his. He
Right.
got his first
Okay.
shot after he came back.
I couldn't remember if he got it after or before. Okay. So, yes. So he ended up coming back to play. That's obviously positive. Sometimes that's adrenaline. So we'll see exactly how effective he is. But that's a huge thing for them moving forward. I really like the Bears' outlook as we head into the end of the season. I get that they're only 5-8, but I think that they do understand, hey, we have some ability to gain some momentum heading into the offseason, into next season. And I guess technically I think we were talking about this before. The Bears aren't technically eliminated, I don't believe, right?
No, I think the only teams right now that are eliminated are Carolina and New England.
Okay.
Chicago has like a 7% chance of making the playoffs right now, but
So,
they have a
right.
pretty good shot of winning a few games here at the end of in this last month of the season.
Exactly. And I think that they're playing well enough. They're playing inspired football. I like the +3 here. Let them know. How well has this Bears team looked of recent, and what do you make of this matchup in this one?
Well, it's definitely you have to start with their defense. This turnaround on defense is honestly on par. I mean, maybe not on par, but very close to what Denver has done this season. It's just a complete and absolute turnaround. I don't really know how to explain how this has happened. I mean, there were some injuries early in the year where there was, one guy was missing 1 week, another guy was missing another week. But, even then, it's hard to figure out how it can improve so much so quickly. The pass rush was completely non existent at the beginning of the year. Now you're seeing them generating pressure. Obviously, adding Montez Sweat helps a lot. These linebackers were getting torched up and down the field. Now they're looking like a very solid duo between Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards. And then the big thing has definitely been their secondary. The secondary was just giving up big play after big play after big play. Now they're just completely shutting guys down. Jalen Johnson, kind of out of nowhere. I mean, he was a solid player his first few years in the league, but this is just a ginormous jump up for him in play. He's been everywhere. You cannot complete a pass on this guy. And some of their other young guys in Kyler Gordon, Quan Brisker are finally starting to play well, both in coverage and as tacklers. So very impressive to see how they're playing now. I think the big thing I'm targeting in this game is probably the game total, and I think I'm leaning towards the under in this game. I feel like this is going to be a very chippy, very defensive game. Cleveland has a ton of injuries on defense, not just Denzel Ward, but Grant Delpit was ruled out for the year. Okoronkwo, with one of their better defensive players, is I think on IR right now with the pec injury. So they have a ton of injuries, but they still have Myles Garrett. Last time these two teams played, Justin Fields' first start in the NFL, Myles Garrett had 4.5 sacks, completely wrecked that game. This Bears offensive line is definitely better now than it was then, but I still feel like Myles Garrett can completely destroy this game. He is that kind of player. I think Jim Schwartz, as a coordinator, has a significant advantage over Luke Getsy, who's the Bears' offensive coordinator. I think he's going to win that chess match. I feel like it's going to be a very, very long day for both quarterbacks. It feels like a 16-13 type game in either direction. I don't feel like either quarterback or either offense is really going to be able to get anything going in this one. So, like the under in this one.
I like it. I like the breakdown. And frankly, I can't wait to see how this Bears team closed out the season because I think they have a lot going
That
for them.
Week 18 game against Green Bay, I think, is going to have quite a few playoff implications. So it should be
I completely agree, and we might have some bets for that one coming up that week.
Oh, yeah.
So we're getting close to it. It's almost the end, V. This is make or break time.
Absolutely.
We are after it. The next game we have on the list is in the later slate. We have Washington heading into LA to take on the Rams. This is actually a game that I like as well, and you're targeting one in here also. The Rams -6.5 at home. Game total for this one, 50.5 points. V, you're liking LA -6.5. I am also. I love that it's under the 7 here.
Yep.
And especially because the big reason why is the Rams, that being they, impressed last week. I was very impressed with how well they had played. I frankly, for one, was not expecting it. They really did, get it was a close game at the end. And granted, they didn't win. They do cover though, and that was against the Ravens. but 31 points, 37 against. They played well. They had some troubles, but they still got some big plays when they needed. I was really impressed with that. And of course, I know you're going to highlight on it. Washington has been fairly abysmal over the last month of the season. It's getting kind of tough to watch. They do shine in some moments, but then they quickly regress and kind of give the ball up. What makes you target LA in this one, V?
Yeah, the key matchup in this game is definitely the Rams passing attack versus this Washington secondary. Washington is allowing 266 passing yards per game. That is the most in the NFL. Matthew Stafford is 10th in the league in passing yards per game at 255. I think this Washington secondary has zero chance of slowing down the Rams passing attack. In their last 3 games, Stafford is averaging 267 passing yards per game. He has thrown 10 touchdowns in those 3 games, and the Rams have scored 31 or more points in those 3 games. They're on an absolute roll right now. Offensively, very difficult to see Washington be able to slow them down as they don't cover the pass, they don't rush the passer, they don't do really anything well at all defensively. On the other side, Washington's offense, like you said, definitely has stalled recently. They have scored 20 or fewer points in 4 of their last 5 games. The rushing attack has been pretty much non-existent this year, ranking in the bottom 10 in the league at less than 100 rushing yards per game. Brian Robinson has been ruled out for this game, so whatever little rushing attack they did have is out the window in this one. They're going to have to rely on Sam Howell dropping back 40 to 50 times in this game to be competitive, and that really has not worked out for them recently. I've talked about it a couple of times, but I just would love to see some more creativity out of this offense. What they've been doing recently has not been working. So unless they change something up off with their play calling or their offensive playbook, I don't see them being able to cover 6.5 points. And when Washington loses, they usually lose pretty big. In their games that they've lost by an average of 16.7 points this year. So either it's going to be a blowout or a Washington win. That's really what it comes down to in this one. I'm going to take the blowout for the Rams.
Yeah, and all you have to do is just go and look at their last 3 games. 31-19 loss
For the Giants.
at home to the Giants. At home to the Giants. 45-10 on the road at Dallas, and a 45-15 this past week against Miami. Week 13. They were on bye this past week. Excuse me. Yeah, there's not much to say. I get that they're also coming off of a bye and they should be, well rested. I don't think that that's going to matter. And honestly, the most surprising thing to me is that they were willing to give us this line at under 7. This game screams a 7.5+ line to me. I know that the Rams aren't world beaters, but given how well they've played offensively, especially since the return of Kyren Williams, they've been fantastic. And one of the big overarching themes, which we've talked about quite a bit this year, is that if you can't rush the passer against the Rams, and if you can't kind of stall that run game, their offense is really, really hard to stop when they can stay on schedule. And I think that they're going to be more or less on schedule for the entire day in this one. I think 6.5 is probably one of the easiest and most valuable lines on this slate this week. Absolutely. And now we head into the primetime slate. There is a bunch of incredible games on the primetime slate right here. We're starting off with, oh, wait, never mind. I thought this was on Sunday night. This game's at 2. I might have.
It's still going to be nationally televised. I think this is the only Fox game.
This is going to be a big game as well. We have the Cowboys heading into Buffalo to take on the Bills. And what can I say? This is going to be an absolute disgusting matchup. It is going to be so incredible to watch. I can't wait to see it happen. But for me, I think that it is just way too much value right now to be giving 2.5 points to Dallas. Dallas has played spectacular football as of recently. They are obviously way too potent offensively, and just awarding points to teams like that is never a great thing, even on the road. I completely understand, though. But when we look at it, I get that Buffalo has been improved, having covered 2 of their last 3, but they're not that far removed from about 7 straight drops of the cover, not covering. And Dallas, on the other hand, it holds the NFL's best against the spread record at 9-4. They have scored 30 plus in their last 5, and they are averaging 39.7 points per game over their last 3. It's been kind of incredible. And when you look at it, the Bills have struggled quite a bit in some aspects, especially defensively, especially in their secondary. And that is where the Cowboys are shining right now. I get that this game is going to be outdoor in Buffalo in December, so the weather could potentially play a factor. But from what I saw, I didn't see a huge chance of rain or snow or anything like that. Everything was right around about a 50% chance in the forecast from what I last looked at. So some games might get a little bit sloppy, others not so much, maybe a little bit of wind. But by and large, this game should maybe just be a little bit cold. So with that being said, this could be an issue, especially if we look at the Bills having a questionable Oh, no, excuse me. He has been downgraded to fully out. Micah Hyde will now miss this game with the head injury, which is a devastating blow to this Bills defense, as those safeties tend to be the heart of that defense. And when one of them goes down, it really becomes tough for them to get these calls in and do the things that they want defensively. That could be an issue moving forward, especially against a potent offense like Dallas. What do you see with this matchup here? The first of a few heavy hitting matchups on our lineup this week.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I stared at this one for a long time the last couple of days, and I honestly cannot figure this one out. I have no idea which way to lean in terms of the spread or the total. I can really see anything happening in this game. Obviously, what Dallas did last week on Sunday night was fantastic. They took both of our monies in terms of just shutting down Philadelphia's offense, did not allow a single offensive touchdown in that game. Incredibly impressive. They're just clicking on all cylinders. Dak continues to look great on offense. But we also have to give credit to Buffalo and what they've done their last couple games. Before the bye, they did lose a heartbreaker to Philadelphia, but they look like the better team for a majority of that game. Philadelphia needed a couple of miracles to pull that one out, including a 59-yarder to tie the game at the end of regulation. So Buffalo definitely deserved to win that game, just didn't come out at the end. And then they really dominated Kansas City last week. Obviously, there was a bunch of controversy at the end of that game, but Buffalo looked like the much better offense in that game throughout the game, and their defense did a really nice job slowing down Patrick Mahomes in that offense. So I think honestly both teams are kind of playing at their peaks right now. So it's really hard to see either way, even though they're getting 2.5 for the Cowboys under 3. We always say that's kind of a pick 'em. Right. So if you think Buffalo is going to win this game, even though Dallas has been so good, it makes sense if you would side with Buffalo. If you think Dallas is going to win, obviously you take the 2.5. You're getting some extra points there. So really just depends on who you think is going to win this game outright. I don't have a good feeling on that either way. So going to be a stay away, but should be awesome to watch.
Yeah, and I could completely see that, especially with how improved Buffalo has been. And I think I hate to say it and do the kind of transitive, like, hey, that Philly game ended up being close, and look at what this Dallas team just did to Philly. I think a lot of definitely where I'm coming from with this game for sure also just has to be that Philly matchup. As much as I don't want to be like, hey, look what they did to Philly and look what the Bills, that close game. Because obviously Philly is still a good team. But right now I definitely am leaning with what the Cowboys have been able to do. But you do bring up a good point. The Bills are an improved team. They have played well over their last 3, and they've played against some quality opponents, especially when we talk about what's happening in Kansas City, Buffalo. There's a lot of stuff to be, or excuse me, Philly, not Buffalo. There's a lot of stuff to be, broken down from those 2 valuable wins, and 2 of the last 3 covers. That's pretty quality as well. I'm still worried, especially when you look at them being a 7-6 team and really having that very long stretch where they played very lousy football, frankly, that it's one of those things that you do have to question. But you are right. They are playing much more improved. But that is where I do agree and where I like the points here, that I think even with them playing really well, I think that this game could definitely be a Dallas money line type game, which you can see when we look at the money line here. Also, it's only plus 116 around for the Dallas Cowboys and around roughly minus 130 in some spots. And these are also the maximum values, by the way, per our friends over at Betting Pros. So shout out to them and shout out to that. But yeah, so it is definitely projected to be a very, very close game. And this might even be one of those targets that if you like either of these teams, given how this slate matches up, that might be an opportunity to do a teaser where you could maybe tease Buffalo into a nicer spot where they're actually a 5-ish point underdog, or you can tease Dallas into being, say, a 10-point underdog, and you put yourself in a really good spot, especially if you pair that with some other games on this slate that look like they could be shoo-ins. The Rams come to mind. You also have a nice line in San Francisco, which is, up for, question after a push, or depending on where you shop, a loss last week after I ate crow on that one. So that's where I stand with this one. And that's another interesting tidbit that maybe we'll have in the Discord this week as well. So that'll be one to watch for. And the last game on the slate here, Sunday Night Football, the Baltimore Ravens heading into Jacksonville, sunny Jacksonville, to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the game total here for this one, 42.5 points. In Baltimore, road favorites by 3. What are you taking in this one, V?
Yeah, this should be another great game. There's a rematch from a regular season game last year where the Baltimore Ravens blew a big double-digit lead and broke my heart as I had picked Baltimore to cover in that one. This time I'm taking the over 42.5 in this game. I'm fairly surprised that this total is so low given what both teams have done offensively, and to be honest, how kind of average or middling their defenses have been. The Ravens have scored 31 or more points in 6 out of their last 7, and their defense has allowed 20 or more points in 3 of their last 4. The Jacksonville Jaguars defense has allowed 31 or more points in 3 of their last 5, including last week when they allowed 31 to Joe Flacco and the Cleveland Browns. This Jaguars defense has allowed 260 passing yards or more in 4 of their last 5, so their secondary is getting absolutely torched. They're going to be without Tyson Campbell and Andre Sisco in their secondary this week, so it should be even more of a challenge for them going up against Lamar and that potent offense. Trevor Lawrence was a full participant in practice today, so it looks like he should be fully healthy to go. Bit of a surprise that he played last week, but he looked, relatively okay. He had a few turnovers, but he also had 3 touchdowns. The Jacksonville offense has scored 24 or more points in 4 straight games, so it really looks like both teams should be able to clear 20 points pretty easily. So when you have a total at 42.5, as long as you can both hit 20, should be a relatively easy over, in my opinion. Neither defense looks to be elite. Both offenses are really moving the ball and putting up points. So definitely love the over 42.5 in this one.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And especially what we've talked about with this Jags defense over the last 3 specifically. And this Baltimore team has been one of the best offenses over the last month or 2 of the season.
That's without Mark Andrews too.
And that's without Mark Andrews. They have been significantly better. And you hit the nail on the head. The biggest shocker for this one is how can they figure 42.5 points when just last week, Joe Flacco and the Cleveland Browns managed 31 points. That is just incredible. And we took a beating on that one.
Yeah.
So that is
that one.
yeah. So that is, just as telling as if that's what they're going to do against Cleveland. What do you think is going to happen with Baltimore, who has played spectacularly, especially last week? Or I shouldn't say maybe especially last week, but it was impressive for them to be able to hold off the Rams, given how well the Rams were playing. And I just don't see these teams as necessarily in the same trajectory right now. I would probably lean towards the 3. I question, the -3. -3 on the road is a little bit harder. You get a little bit of push value there with Baltimore. I don't know enough to trust the Jags right now, but I also don't think it's terribly hard for them, especially if Trevor Lawrence is good to go, for them to get into that 20-point range and make this a fairly easy over. I'm right there with you, and I completely agree. So that puts a wrap. That puts a bow on week 15, our breakdown for week 15. It was a good time. We got to talk to Jason. So shout out to Jason. Everybody go follow Jason at that FF Nerd on Twitter. You can also hit him up in our Discord. Ask all of your playoff fantasy questions. He is a busy bee right now, breaking all of that down. We are back same time next week, 8 p.m. Eastern, and we will be back all the way through the playoffs. So you don't have to worry about that. You can check out all the Important Nonsense team's work over at importantnonsense.com. That's also how you get into our Discord. You become a member there to get access. You can get all of our picks. If there's anything we didn't break down in the show, you can go and ask us about it there. We also drop more picks every single week in the Discord. This is only a fraction of the stuff that we target every single week. So go hit us up in there. And if at all you decide you want to support us, you can definitely hit us up for some IN merch at the website, promo code LOCK. We would definitely appreciate that. That helps us keep the lights on here. And yeah, V, any parting words for the folks at home?
Really excited for this weekend. Can't wait to wake up early tomorrow and start watching some football right to start the day. Every team playing tomorrow is above 500 and in a playoff chase right now. So should be an exciting day tomorrow. Should be a fun one on Sunday as well. So we're looking forward to it. And yeah, we'll check everybody out next week.
And it's been a lot of fun. And until next time, everybody, good night and good luck.